Hey everybody, Uncle Rich here. Today's April 29th, 2013, and today's show is number 12. And it's called Things Go Badder with KOCH. Now you're going to say, Rich, that's not what that sign says. What's a KOCH? I'm going to explain what a KOCH is later on. Don't worry about it. We're going to get into full detail. We're going to talk about the 1%. We're going to talk about putting profits before people. And, people are going to look at this and they're going to say, Rich, wait, what, did you start drinking again? And no, I haven't started drinking. But I tell you, some of the stuff I'm going to tell you about tonight is going to sober some people up. And I mean that seriously. Because when you see what's going on, you're going to go, holy mackerel, I never realized. And that's why we're here. We're here for one reason, to find out who's telling the truth. Now, a couple of shows ago, we introduced you to the bada bing bitch slap. And, I just never envisioned how it would have taken off. But folks, I got to tell you, you got to be careful. Because people are trying to use the double reverse backhand, bada bing bitch slap, and they haven't practiced all the other moves. So what's happening is we're having some problems. People are poking themselves in the eye. One guy got a bloody nose. One guy knocked his dentures out of his mouth. We've had some problems. So today we got to go over the bada bing bitch slap again because we want to make sure nobody gets hurt, all right? Now listen, last week we introduced you to what we called the scooch. Remember, we talked to we scooched the bear, and we talked about every time we see an American flag, and not right now, Judy, but when we see an American flag, we want to scooch people, give them the business, and we want to ask them, when they see the flag, what does that flag represent? So we're going to talk about scooching people, and then after that, we're going to deal about some iconic symbols, things that people are going to remember to this date. And we're going to go back, we're going to be talking about the two brothers today, the Koch brothers. And, we've done previous shows where we showed the Koch brothers exposed movie, which was big, and we're going to deal a little bit about that. But we're going to show you how the Koch brothers have created the confusion about global warming. And we're going to have another clip from Bill McKibben from 350.org. And remember, 350, we watched the trailer last week, and we had the movie. And 350 is becoming a valuable, big organization. And then we're going to show how the Koch brothers funded skepticism. And we're also going to we're going to go to TED, and we're going to show you a guy from TED. His name is Nick Hanauer, and he did a talk on TED. We're going to show you that, and it's about income inequality. And then finally, we're going to show you another source of energy that very few people are aware of. And when you see this, it's going to blow you away. Because everything that you've heard and seen on Fox, when you watch this show, is going to be proven false. And you guys know if there's one thing I love to do, I love to hate Fox. And why? Because they're a bunch of foxtitudes. They sold out. And they don't care about you. They care about their pocketbooks, and they care about the Republican agenda. And that's why we're here. So that when somebody says something stupid, you could stand there and you could bada bing them, and you could say, hey, where are you getting your information from? All right, folks, so now we're going to go back to the beginning. And Judy, if you can hit me with the American flag, because we'd love to see that flag, Old Glory, blowing in the breeze. And there she is. And folks, when we look at that flag blowing, we want you to reach over and scooch the person next to you. And Judy, remember how we scooch people? We come back to camera number 2 and we scooch people. There we go, and we scooch people. And why do you want to scooch people? so that it raises their awareness. You know, when I was growing up, if we saw a car with only one headlight, we called it a padiddle. And if you saw one before anybody else in the group, it gave you a free license to punch them. So you would look, padiddle, boom, and you hit and as my kids were growing up, when the Volkswagens came back into vogue, anytime they would see a Volkswagen, they would go, punch buggy, and they would punch each other, all right? So from now on, when you see an American flag blowing in the breeze, I want you to scotch the person next to you, give them the business, and what do we want them to say? That's a win-win solution. And Judy is on the money today. So it's not a win-win situation, it's a win-win solution. So whenever you see that flag blowing, reach over to the person next to you, give them the old scutcheroony, and say to them, what does that represent? And from now on, we want everybody to say it represents free energy. All right, guys. Now, did we look at the turbines, by the way, while we were going through that? Because Judy, I want you to put up the turbines. And these are the turbines from the San Giorgio pass. And look at those things. I mean, have you ever seen? I mean, this is unbelievable. We don't have any turbines in this part of the country. This weekend, I took a ride with my wife, and we went west on 84, and then we went up the Taconic State Parkway and over into, over by, I forget exactly where we went. But, you know, when we came over 84, you see that beautiful panoramic view, and you could see everything for miles and miles and miles. You know what? The one thing we didn't see? We didn't see any wind turbines. And I'm saying to myself, where are the wind turbines? And I mean, and all day, we saw plenty of flags, and I would scotch my wife every time we saw a flag. And after, you know, at first she goes, you know, what? And I said, honey, that guy on TV with the orange hat, he says, whenever you see a flag, you gotta scotch somebody. So I gave her the business all day. It was a nice, breezy day, plenty of flags. And do you know that by the end of the day, by the time we were almost home, we saw another flag blowing in the breeze, and you know what she did? She gave me the business. And I said, now you're catching on. And that's what we want to do, folks. You know, we just want to raise awareness, and we want to stop the BS. And where do we get all the BS? I think you already know. All right, now, getting back to the Koch brothers. We're going to play a little video clip now, and this is going to bring back some memories. This is from 1965, so you can see how long Koch and its products and everything that they do has been with us. So let's go back in time and let's take a little look at this.
Liberal Viewer presents.
So last week, when a variety of Fox News anchors spread the misinformation that President Obama's 10-day trip to India and other Asian countries was costing American taxpayers $200 million a day, without ever checking the accuracy of the vastly overstated report, it was typical of Fox News' counterfactual, anti-Obama news style. But Fox News opinion journalist Bill O'Reilly still couldn't own up to what his own network had done when he appeared for an interview last Friday on HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, where you can see Bill O'Reilly backtracking through multiple levels of dishonesty in an answer to Bill Maher's question about the bogus report here.
Let me ask you this. This week we found out that from Fox News people and Rush Limbaugh, several conservatives, that Obama is spending $200 million a day on his trip to India.
And that's bull.
I know.
It wasn't Fox News reporting it. It came from a guy in India, picked up by the Drudge Report, and then disseminated by certain other people.
On Fox
Hard news people didn't do it.
Now, just to be clear, the same day Bill O'Reilly told Bill Maher there that Fox News didn't report this story, Fox News anchor Ainsley Earhardt over on Fox and Friends was reading news headlines reporting the $200 million a day number without any fact-checking, as you can see, for example, in this clip.
In less than 3 hours, our president will head to India. The president's plane will stop at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany to refuel before heading to Mumbai. It's the start of a 10-day trip through India, Indonesia, South Korea, as well as Japan. The main focus there, the economy. The president is urging those countries to buy more American goods. The White House dismissing reports that the trip is going to cost you, the American taxpayer, $200 million a day. Lots of money. Those are your headlines.
Now, if those were our headlines, but we weren't supposed to consider them actual news, I'm not sure how anyone is supposed to tell the difference. But even if you consider Fox and Friends soft news or Beck, O'Reilly, and Hannity opinion news, that still doesn't relieve Fox News of responsibility for those shows' factual accuracy, which is why I don't accept the continuation of Bill O'Reilly's defense of Fox News to Bill Maher here.
Who?
Sean Hannity.
Look, Sean is a commentator, a talk radio guy. That's not Fox.
But he's presenting that as a fact. It's not his opinion that it was $200 million.
Then you got to take it up with Hannity. But there's a difference between the opinion people and the hard news people.
There is?
Yeah.
Wow,
I'm an opinion guy.
Now, Bill O'Reilly may be an opinion guy, and that may relieve him of some responsibility for being balanced in his presentation, but it still doesn't relieve him or Fox News of responsibility for getting their facts straight, as Joan Walsh of Salon.com argued accurately on CNN's Reliable Sources last Sunday in this clip.
I think even conservatives and even liberals, opinion journalists, really have an obligation to check their facts. So it's not just that Hannity, he's going to blow up, he's just going to blow off steam. He's putting out lies. He's not doing the basic groundwork to figure out if they're true.
Okay.
That's not good journalism from the left or the right.
And Joan Walsh is right, and I'm glad to see someone on CNN making that point I never see made on Fox News, but the need for even opinion journalists to be factually accurate is not the only flaw in the Bill O'Reilly defense of Fox News reporting that Bill Maher should just take it up with Sean Hannity, because the Fox News misreporting of the cost of Obama's trip to Asia went well beyond just Hannity or Fox and Friends in what looked like a concerted effort at misinformation, chronicled on Monday in a great segment on The Daily Show that included the video montage of Fox misinformation in this clip.
Big controversy as to what the real cost of the trip is.
It's going to cost about $200 million a day for this entourage to go.
$200 million a day, 3,000 people.
As much as $1 billion for the trip.
$500 million. It's going to be somewhere around there. Some people say that it is up to $2 billion for 10 days. Is that true? I don't know. And how many ships will be there? 34 warships, possibly. I don't know. He's just saying.
And not only did Jon Stewart show the disingenuous way several Fox News anchors spread the bogus report, but this great Daily Show segment you can see in full at tinyurl.com/StewartScuresFox then went on to totally skewer Glenn Beck for claiming there not to know the accuracy of the reported cost of Obama's trip he spread on Fox News after reporting the bogus story with full confidence on his radio show a few hours before. But maybe the best part of the Daily Show segment was the way they used video from the White House, the Pentagon, NBC, and CNN to show how easy the bogus story would have been for Fox News to check, as you can see in this clip.
This trip doesn't cost $200 million a day.
Some 34 ships and an aircraft carrier in support of the president's trip to Asia. That's just comical.
Just to put it in perspective, it costs about $190 million a day to execute the war in Afghanistan.
That $200 million a day figure, where'd that come from? Well, that was in a quote by an alleged Indian provincial official.
Oh my God, Fox has been outsourcing even their bullshit manufacturing jobs. This is crazy.
Oh, that one's got to sting, because notice there that Fox News bias was part of the premise of that joke rather than the punchline, because Fox News' counterfactual anti-Obama news style has basically become common knowledge among all but the most ignorant, whether willfully ignorant or otherwise, which may explain why Bill O'Reilly back in his HBO interview couldn't even bring himself to unconditionally argue for Fox News' factual accuracy when Bill Maher asked him about a recent Bloomberg poll showing a majority of voters believe the misinformation about the first 2 years of the Obama administration Maher listed here.
Taxes have gone up, that the economy has shrunk, and that the TARP money will never be recovered. So in other words, they got everything wrong. Do you think Fox News bears any responsibility for people having bad information?
You know, unless we report bad information, you got a bunch of seals in there? What's going on in there?
We have turkey buzzards, Bill.
Okay. Unless Fox News is reporting bad information, then we're not responsible for bad information.
Unless Fox News is reporting bad information, then they're not responsible for bad information? Given the wealth of bad information Fox News has been caught reporting from so many sources, from The Daily Show to CNN's reliable sources to my own Fox News bias playlist, I think the resolution to Bill O'Reilly's conditional statement is pretty obvious, but I want to know what you think. Isn't there ample evidence that Fox News is both reporting bad information and that they're responsible for bad information? And given that evidence, wasn't Bill O'Reilly's defense of Fox News in this instance, like any defense of Fox News' journalistic integrity, ultimately dishonest to the point of being a lie?
YouTube, you decide.
I don't know. Glenn, I don't know, but you know what? I'll say it because it doesn't matter, because nobody challenges them. And that's why we're here. So that when they say something stupid, what do? Where are you getting your information from? And remember, we get bada bing. Because, folks, this has got to stop. I mean, it's just absurdly ridiculous. And listen, I want to apologize. We showed you the wrong video. We wanted to show you the Coca-Cola video because we want to put it into context with the Koch brothers. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to do this again. But once again, getting back to Fox, don't they have a responsibility to tell the truth? Don't they have journalistic integrity? I mean, what's wrong with these people? You know, I mean, these are the sick people. But anyway, we're going to go to the old iconic moment now where everything is nice and the sun's always shining and everything's good. And Judy, hit us.
Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, for extra fun. Take more than one, take an extra carton of Coke.
Summer's the time when you need something more than a soft drink. So reach for ice-cold Coca-Cola and lots of it. Nothing soft about the taste of Coke. It's unmistakable. And Coke lifts your spirits, boosts your energy, gives you the refreshment you're looking for. Pick up a carton tomorrow. And for extra fun, take more than one.
For extra fun, take more than one. Take an extra carton of Coke. Things go better with Coca-Cola. Things go better with Coke. An extra carton of Coke.
Look for these more than one displays wherever you shop and follow that good advice. Take more than one.
Take more than one. Isn't that the American way? I mean, those people are so happy. Did you see the one guy was jumping for joy because he got his sugar fix? And do you guys realize how much sugar is in a bottle of Coke? I mean, it's kind of sad. It really is kind of sad. And, you know, of course, they didn't show any obesity on the beach, and everybody was, you know, trim and proper and fit, and everything was nice. And, yeah, well, let me tell you, folks, you drink that stuff your whole life, you're going to have some problems. All right, now, we want to get down to the nitty-gritty. And we want to go back to a movie that I really enjoyed. It's called Trading Places. And we want to show you a scene from Trading Places. It's called The $1 Bet. Now, these guys represent the 1%. Actually, they represent probably less than the 1%. And those are the people that I really have the beef with. The people that put profits before people. And we're going to roll this clip now, and I think you're really going to get a kick out of it. Judy!
pay up, Mortimer? I've won the bet.
Here, $1.
We took a perfectly useless psychopath like Valentine and turned him into a successful executive. And during the same time, we turned an honest, hard-working man into a violently deranged would-be killer. Now, what are we going to do about taking Winthorpe back and returning Valentine to the ghetto?
I don't want Winthorpe back after what he's done.
You mean keep Valentine on as managing director?
Do you really believe I would have a nigger run our family business, Randolph?
Of course not. Neither would I. I do think we should hold off on switching them back, though, until we get that crop report New Year's Eve, don't you?
Absolutely. No sense rocking the boat until then.
If Mr. Beeks does what we paid him to do, we should have a very happy New Year.
Indeed.
If the lights aren't on the cameras, I don't know what happened. If Mr. Beeks does what we paid him to do, it should be a very good year. See, these guys are all about manipulation and control. So, you know, these are the Koch brothers in disguise. I mean, we just watched it. And now we're going to go a step further, because we're going to look at the guy, Robert Greenwald, who gave us the movie, The Koch Brothers Exposed, which we showed you part of in an earlier show. But we're going to show you a different clip from him just so you can get the flavor of how these guys operate. Judy, hit us.
Hello, I'm Robert Greenwald. The Koch Brothers Exposed is our latest Brave New Foundation campaign. The size and the scope of what the Koch brothers are trying to do is unprecedented in the history of our country.
These people are destroying America.
They bankrolled the Tea Party movement.
Barack Obama means Antichrist.
Global warming is probably the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on the American people.
An exclusive report links the billionaire Koch brothers to Governor Walker. Surprise, surprise.
I have not yet begun to fight.
Kochs are meeting here in private, and they're influencing our politics. It's dirty money that's influencing our politics.
Join us in fighting back. Join us in taking action. Join us in doing something about it. Become a producer. We need your help.
Guys, look how much money they spent to make people climate deniers. Why would they want to do that? The reason why they want to do that is simple. If they spend this much money trying to convince people to become climate deniers, look how much money they save the shareholders because of the profits that they save. And this is where it starts to get crazy. When you start to put profits before people, That's the corporate way. That's not the American way. When are we going to start learning our lesson? Now, like I said, they spent millions of dollars on climate denial. Now we're going to show them, we're going to show you how with Bill McKibben, and you remember Bill McKibben from 350.org, we're going to show you how they showed how the Koch brothers have promoted the denial. So Judy, let's roll it.
In the best of the rest of the news, a Koch brother-funded climate change skeptic has suddenly reversed course and now proclaims that humans are entirely the cause of global climate change. 3 years ago, this guy, physicist Richard Mueller, was given $150,000 from the Koch brothers to co-found the Berkeley Earth's Surface Temperature Project to debunk climate change arguments. But on Sunday, after 3 years of intense research, Mueller is biting the hand that feeds him by promoting genuine science and ringing the alarm bell that climate change is happening and humans are to blame. As Mueller wrote on Sunday in the New York Times, "My total turnaround in such a short time is the result of careful and objective analysis. It appears likely that essentially all of this increase in temperatures results from the human emission of greenhouse gases." From unprecedented ice melting in Greenland, to unprecedented heat waves and droughts in America, to sudden die-offs of reefs and phytoplankton in the oceans, our world is changing rapidly. And even Koch-funded scientists can't deny it anymore. Ultimately, it may now be too late. Centuries of hurling toxic greenhouse gases into the atmosphere may have already pushed the world past the climate change threshold, meaning in the coming years, decades, centuries, our planet could be radically different than we're prepared to handle. For more on this, Bill McKibben joins me. He's an environmental activist and founder of 350.org, as well as the author of the book, Earth. Bill, welcome back.
Hey, Tom, always good to be with you.
Oh, it's always an honor to have you, Bill. So now even scientists who have been paid to deny climate change are waking up. What do you make of this development?
Well, I mean, scientifically, it's not that interesting because all he's doing is confirming what the other scientists have said for more than a decade now. But politically, it's kind of interesting. You know, the climate deniers, the fossil fuel industry, have really begun to flail, I think, mostly because everybody can now look around them and see what happens when a planet starts to warm. We've got 40% less ice in the summer Arctic. The ocean is 30% more acid. Because warm air holds more water vapor than cold, we have more drought and more floods. And pretty much everybody is seeing this. 76% of American farms are currently in a drought. Something like 80% of American counties had some kind of federally declared weather disaster last year. You'd have to be almost willfully blind, either that or working for the fossil fuel industry, not to see what's going on around you.
For decades, climate scientists have been warning about coming freak weather. Are we seeing that now? Is this these heat waves?
This is just the sort of thing that climate scientists said.
Where's it going to go from here, Bill?
Well, here's the scary part, Tom. What we're seeing now is what happens when you warm the temperature about 1 degree. The same scientists who told us that would happen tell us with robust confidence that we'll look at a temperature increase more like 4 or 5 degrees unless we get off fossil fuel far more quickly than any government currently plans to. You know, I have a piece in the current issue of Rolling Stone that's attracted a lot of attention, more than 1 million views, because it lays bare the fact that the fossil fuel industry is currently planning. I mean, literally planning. They've announced with their reserves that they've declared to the SEC to burn more fossil fuel than even the most conservative scientist or government thinks is safe. We're really on the path towards something that makes our current heat waves, look like a Sunday school picnic.
Well, in that article in Rolling Stone, you referred to 3 numbers that add up to a global catastrophe. What are they?
First is 2 degrees. That's what the world's governments have declared is the most we could possibly allow the world to warm. That's the kind of red line that they've set. Now, scientists say it's much too high, that really 1 degree is already giving us horrible troubles. But in the interest of realism, let's stick with the moment for 2 degrees. The scientists have also told us that we can burn about 565 more gigatons of carbon before 2050 and have some hope of staying below that 2-degree line. The trouble is that the fossil fuel industry and the countries that operate like the fossil fuel industry, think Venezuela, say, have on their books 2,700 gigatons of carbon, 5 times more. It's not yet above ground physically, but it's above ground economically. That's what Exxon's share price is based on. When Chevron goes to the bank to borrow money, that's the collateral. And so in essence, they've already declared that they're going to burn it, and unless we can figure out how to put a serious crimp in their plans, and we're working hard on that at 350.org, that carbon's going to get burnt, and the planet's going to heat by multiples of what any sane scientist says is okay.
Bill, we've heard people talk about cap and trade, we've heard people talk about carbon taxes, and we've heard people talk about carbon sequestration, sucking the carbon dioxide or the carbon in the carbon dioxide out of the air, out of the atmosphere. Where are these things at? And are there other solutions that I haven't mentioned? I guess the obvious one is just stop burning this stuff, right?
Yeah, the essential policy thing, every economist has pointed out for a decade now. Put a price on carbon that reflects the damage it does in the atmosphere. The fossil fuel industry is the only industry on Earth that gets to pour its waste out for free, Tom. Nobody else. I mean, you run a restaurant, you have to pay someone to cart away your garbage. It would be cheaper to chuck it in the street, but then you'd have rats. That's why civilizations don't let people do that unless they run fossil fuel. So what we have to do is assemble a big enough movement to force the fossil fuel industry to do the right thing. That's going to be hard to do. They're the richest industry on Earth. Exxon announced a quarterly profit of $15 or $16 billion last week. But we're going to try. We're going to try and build a divestment movement that looks like the one that took on apartheid in South Africa a generation ago. At 350.org, we're going to launch a big nationwide campaign the night after the election, and that's going to be its point. If these guys want to take away our future and our planet, then we're going to take away their money.
Bill, the point that you made about, they're dumping their waste on us, in economics, those are called externalities. I suppose in environmentalism as well. They are internalizing their profits, and they are externalizing the costs, the damage that's being done. And it's not just the climate change, it's the cancers that are being caused by these, by the high fractions of these things and the diesel particulate.
Right,
and whatnot.
but in this case, the damage from climate is on an unbelievable scale. They're externalizing their costs not only on all of us, but on everybody who's ever going to come after us. They're doing damage on a geological timescale. That's what happens when you change the chemistry of seawater, say. It's not going to change back anytime soon. I mean, not in any human terms. We're letting them screw things up on an unprecedented level.
How do we wake people up to the concept that this is an externality, that this is their dumping their trash? It's such a great meme.
Well, that's why we're setting off around the country on this roadshow. Naomi Klein will be coming along. We're going to try and really spread this message. It'll begin November 7th, I guess, in Seattle and go on from there. And it should be a pretty remarkable exercise, I think. It's time to take these guys on. I don't know whether we can win. If you were a betting person, you might say we couldn't. But, if you're a betting person this time last year, you would have said the Keystone Pipeline would be built too. And we organized the largest civil disobedience action in 30 years, and we've won at least a temporary victory there. So we'll continue to try and build movements and see what we can do.
Step by step. Bill McKibben, 350.org. Thanks a lot, Bill.
Thank you, Tom. Take care.
Keep up the great work. As the temperatures get hotter and the weather gets wilder, eventually billionaires will no longer be able to buy off scientists to deny the reality of the damage their oil, coal, and natural gas industries are doing to our planet.
See that? It's the Koch brothers against science. And then what happens, why is this happening? I mean, the science is settled, but they want to create the doubt. And this is where we have to stop them, because there is no doubt. It's like trying to say smoking cigarettes is good for you. It ain't. It's that simple. Now we're going to put more salt in the wound because now we're going to show you some people that the Koch brothers paid to do the science, and they wanted them to come out with the right results, and this guy didn't buckle. He laid his cards on the table and he says, hey guys, listen, I have to tell you the truth. We've got some problems. Judy, let's show them the problem.
There is broad scientific agreement that global warming is happening and that we humans are at least partially to blame. But there are some very important scientific skeptics. Last week in the opinion pages of the New York Times, one of the most important of those skeptics did a public about-face. Richard Muller is a physicist at the University of California at Berkeley who until recently doubted the existence of global warming. Now, he says, it's real and humans are almost entirely to blame. How he came to this change of heart or mind and why is fascinating. Welcome, Professor Muller.
Thank you.
You say in that piece that all scientists should be skeptics, and I think you're right. I remember Niels Bohr once said that every statement should be taken by a scientist as a provisional hypothesis that has to be tested. So what made you start doubting your original skepticism? What made you look at, what evidence convinced you that something real was happening here?
The issues were so large that about 2.5 years ago, my daughter and I began a major scientific research effort in which we recruited a dozen of some of the top scientists in the world, including Saul Perlmutter, who won the Nobel Prize last year, well after he joined our team. So we felt there were questions that were valid, questions about data reliability, about data adjustment, about the choice of the stations which had been used. These demanded attention, and I couldn't get the answers. Only way to do it is to do the study ourselves. So after a great deal of work, largely done by Robert Rohde, who I can't compliment enough, his superb work in data analysis, which we all carefully participated in, about a year ago, maybe 9 months, I came to the conclusion that, yes, global warming was real. Then, over the last 3 to 6 months, Rohde was able to extend the record back to 1753. We now had a really long record, beginning before the American Revolution, when Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were the ones taking the data. With this long record, we could look for the signatures of the various possible causes. We're able to rule out solar variability, able to rule out volcanoes. They had an effect, but it was short-lived. When we tried fitting it to see whether it looked like carbon dioxide, it was right on. It was a shock to me that how well that carbon dioxide curve fit our new temperature data set.
So when you look at the historical data now, is it fair to characterize the situation thus, that ever since the Industrial Revolution, human beings have been pumping more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that increase in CO2 has been having the effect that we call global warming?
That is my viewpoint on this. You can't prove it. It's always possible that something random is happening that just happens to match the carbon dioxide data, but it leads me to conclude that essentially all of this warming over the last 250, 260 years has been caused by greenhouse gases emitted by humans.
Now, do you also worry about the potential effects that this will have on life on Earth? Because a lot of people talk about global warming, and then they say, if it gets to a certain point, the higher end of the UN estimates, you could have very significant coastal flooding. You could have kind of unintended consequences or sort of follow-on effects that could be even more damaging to life on Earth.
Well, I am deeply worried about it. The coastal flooding, the UN estimate is something like between 2 and 3 feet. That's not huge, but I am concerned. I think rising temperatures soon will be in a realm that's higher than we, Homo sapiens, have ever experienced. I do not personally believe that's good for our civilization. I think we really do need to do something about it.
And what do you think, when you look at the issue of what to do about it, there are people who say, Look, the only thing we can do is what's called adaptation. We should rotate crops, we should build dikes, we should do those kinds of things. And then there are people who say, no, the problem is so serious, you have to actually get at the root cause and slow down the emission of CO2.
I believe in the latter. And adaptation, we're a very adaptable species, but adaptation is always disruptive and it hurts. Let's see what we can do. And the biggest thing we have to do, we have to recognize that the reason the carbon dioxide is shooting up is not because of the U.S. Ours has actually been going down over the last few years as we switch from coal to natural gas. Natural gas emits only 1/3 the carbon dioxide that does coal. If we are going to do something about this, there are two things we have to do. One is energy conservation efficiency. That's really important, a huge amount we can do there. Number two is we've got to switch the world, China, India, and particularly the developing world, away from coal and onto natural gas. That's a solution that a lot of my environmentalist friends don't like because they have decided they have to oppose hydraulic fracturing, known as fracking. But in fact, that is one of the two biggest things we can do, energy conservation and a switch to natural gas from coal.
Your funding, some of your funding came from the Koch brothers, who are famously anti-global warming or believe that it isn't happening. How did that play out? Were they disappointed by the results of your research? Have they asked for their money back?
I actually find it amusing how many people think they know what the Koch brothers are thinking. It's a caricature of these people who I did speak with them, and they made it clear to me from the very beginning that they recognized that there were serious issues raised about prior estimates to global warming, everything from urban heat islands to data selection bias to other things. And they knew that I wanted to look into that our team would do a good unbiased job, and all they were asking for was scientific objectivity. So I was very pleased with their fundings. I really sensed they wanted to have this problem solved, and they never gave me any suggestion, any hint of a suggestion about which side they were hoping we would come out on.
And you haven't heard from them since you've gone public on these issues?
Oh, I actually have talked to them, and they appeared to be very pleased.
Professor Miller, pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. If you want to learn more about Dr. Miller's ideas, he has a new book out, Energy for Future Presidents, from Norton. We'll be right back in just a moment with a conversation you won't want to miss. There's a reason your mother told you never to talk about politics in mixed company. I'll explain.
You know, I find it very hard to believe that the Koch brothers are pleased with the results. I think they were hoping for different results, and when they got those temperature results, I think what they said is, okay, well, we've got to address the doubt a different way. Because there's always doubt. There's always uncertainty. And this is what they feed off of all the time. Uncertainty. Well, guess what? It's uncertain whether you're going to have your next breath or not. But you can't stop that from letting you live. And you can't use that as an excuse for not taking care of a problem that we got to take care of. Now, you remember earlier I spoke about when it comes to global warming, how I was using the idea from the Exxon Hates Your Kids, you know, where I was, you know, really hitting people right between, why do you hate your kids? Why haven't you studied enough about global warming to find out how it's going to affect your children's future? You know, that's why I'm here. That's why we're here. That's why we devote the time and the effort, is because if we don't make changes, we ain't going to be here, folks. It's that simple. All right, now let's take it a step further. If they can't confuse you with the global warming, with climate change, they'll get into your back pockets by going through the politicians. And watch how the Koch brothers deceived all of Wisconsin. Judy, we're ready.
The headline here, the way this keeps getting shorthanded, is workers angry after state is forced by budget crisis to crack down. That's not what's going on.
The rich versus the middle class. An exclusive report links the billionaire Koch brothers to Governor Walker. Surprise, surprise.
These anti-labor groups tried to get their people to shut down the protesters. Americans for Prosperity and Wisconsin Club for Growth are providing buses from various locations. You may recognize Americans for Prosperity. That's a Tea Party front group funded by the billionaire Koch brothers.
Well, I'll tell you what, Scott. Once you crush these bastards, I'll fly you out to Cali and really show you a good time.
All right, that would be outstanding.
Quote, the department may sell any state-owned heating, cooling, and power plant or may contract with a private entity for the operation of any such plant with or without solicitation of bids. So what's going on in Wisconsin right now is not about closing a budget shortfall. It's about implementing a conservative wish list that stretches back long before Walker was even elected.
Guys, it doesn't stop there. Even after they spent all this time and effort and money to confuse and delusion the American people, guess what they're doing now? They're coming up with a new, it's a new Koch group association. It's called the Association for American Innovation. So who knows how they're going to funnel money into different organizations, because we're aware of the fact, with the Heritage Foundation and all the different things that they fund and how devious they are. And what really gets me is how they get to the American people and they get to your patriotism and to everything else that's good about America. And they want you to wrap yourself in the American flag while you're holding the Bible and all those other good things, like George Carlin said, while they're ramming it up your backside. You remember the thing from George Carlin? He laid his cards on the table. He got it right. All right, now, so they got another group, but we're going to keep forging ahead. Now, we're going to see part of the 1% that doesn't think that you have to be devious and you have to mislead people. This guy's name, it's Nick Hanauer, and he's the primary owner of Amazon. Let's listen to what he has to say. This is the way the 1% should behave. Judy?
It is astounding how significantly one idea can shape a society and its policies. Consider this one. If taxes on the rich go up, job creation will go down. This idea is an article of faith for Republicans and seldom challenged by Democrats, and has indeed shaped much of the economic landscape. But sometimes the ideas that we are certain are true are dead wrong. Consider that for thousands of years, humans believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. It's not, and an astronomer who still believed that it was would do some pretty terrible astronomy. Likewise, a policymaker who believes that the rich are job creators and therefore should not be taxed will do equally terrible policy. I have started or helped start dozens of companies and initially hired lots of people. But if there was no one around who could afford to buy what we had to sell, all those companies and all those jobs would have evaporated. That's why I can say with confidence that rich people don't create jobs, nor do businesses large or small. Jobs are a consequence of a circle of life-like feedback loop between customers and businesses. And only consumers can set in motion this virtuous cycle of increasing demand and hiring. In this sense, an ordinary consumer is more of a job creator than a capitalist like me. That's why when business people take credit for creating jobs, it's a little bit like squirrels taking credit for creating evolution. It's actually the other way around. Anyone who's ever run a business knows that hiring more people is a course of last resort for capitalists. It's what we do if and only if rising consumer demand requires it. And in this sense, calling ourselves job creators isn't just inaccurate, it's disingenuous. That's why our existing policies are so upside down. When the biggest tax exemptions and the lowest tax rates benefit the richest, all in the name of job creation, all that happens is that the rich get richer. Since 1980, the share of income for the top 1% of Americans has more than tripled, while our effective tax rates have gone down by 50%. If it was true that lower taxes for the rich and more wealth for the wealthy led to job creation, today we would be drowning in jobs. And thank you. And yet, unemployment and underemployment is at record highs. Another reason that this idea is so wrong-headed is that there can never be enough super rich people to power a great economy. Somebody like me makes hundreds or thousands of times as much as the median American, but I don't buy hundreds or thousands of times as much stuff. My family owns 3 cars, not 3,000. I buy a few pairs of pants and shirts a year like most American men. Occasionally we go out to eat with friends. I can't buy enough of anything to make up for the fact that millions of unemployed and underemployed Americans can't buy any new cars, any clothes, or enjoy any meals out. Nor can I make up for the falling consumption of the vast majority of middle-class families that are barely squeaking by, buried by spiraling costs and trapped by stagnant or declining wages. Here's an incredible fact, that if the typical American family still retained the same share of income that they did in 1970, they'd earn like $45,000 more a year. Imagine what our economy would be like if that were the case. Significant privileges have come to people like me, capitalists, for being perceived as job creators at the center of the economic universe, and the language and metaphors we use to defend the current economic and social arrangements is telling. It's a small jump from job creator to the creator. This language was not chosen by accident. And it's only honest to admit that when somebody like me calls themselves a job creator, we're not just describing how the economy works, but more particularly, we're making a claim on status and privileges that we deserve. Speaking of special privileges, the extraordinary differential between the 15% tax rate that capitalists pay on carried interest, dividends, and capital gains, and the 35% top marginal rate on work that ordinary Americans pay, is kind of hard to justify without a touch of deification. We've had it backwards for the last 30 years. Rich people like me don't create jobs. Jobs are a consequence of an ecosystemic feedback loop between customers and businesses. And when the middle class thrives, businesses grow and hire, and owners profit. That's why taxing the rich to pay for investments that benefit all is such a fantastic deal for the middle class and the rich. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's an idea worth spreading. In a capitalist economy, the true job creators are middle-class consumers. And taxing the rich to make investments that make the middle class grow and thrive is the single shrewdest thing we can do for the middle class, for the poor, and for the rich. Thank you.
He gets it. He gets it. He's talking about the common good. And that's what we have to work for, folks. You know what I mean? Not the 1%, not more for the people at the top and less for everybody else. The common good. What's so hard about this? You know, put people before profits. It's simple. All right, we're going to look at some new technology now, which is going to blow you away. Judy, run it.
The problem with renewable energy is the lack of continuous supply. Solar power only when it's sunny, wind power only when it's windy, and wave power when the sea's not too rough. I'm Russell Beard and I've come to South Spain to visit Gemma Solar, the first solar tower power station that can produce electricity 24 hours a day. But in order to get a real sense of the scale of this place, I need to get a little bit higher. Samuel! Wow, my heart is in my mouth a little bit, but it's incredible. And I can't believe I'm flying this plane. So Sam just spotted the tower up ahead, so he said just point at the tower and carry on. Okay, here's Gemma Solar. You can see it just below us now.
thousands of these heliostats, these revolving mirrors. It's just amazing. Feels like we're looking into the future.
Photovoltaic is like one of the fastest growing energy sources in the world at the moment, but these aren't photovoltaics, are they?
No, not at all. They are not photovoltaics at all.
So these
Those
are just
glass, are mirrors, and they are reflecting the light on top of the tower.
The reflected sunlight from the 2,650 heliostats combined can generate enough electricity to power 25,000 homes, but only if they're all pointing in exactly the right spot.
Santiago's brought along one of these miniature parabolic mirrors, which I guess is almost like a perfect scale model of your solar tower.
Yes, I mean, the tower looks like in the middle of a circle of heliostats, and every heliostat is like, yeah, taking a different angle to reflect the light on top of the tower, and then to concentrate all the energy on a single spot.
So let me try.
It's going, it's going.
Oh wow, you can see it catching fire. It's so sensitive, like one tiny degree out and it stops burning. I mean, this must be the challenge that you're facing.
Exactly, I mean, exactly what we have to be doing. I mean, we have to be very precise in moving the heliostats in the right position to concentrate the light there.
Sunlight is reflected from each heliostat onto a central receiver at the top of the tower. Sodium and potassium nitrate salts are pumped from the cold salts tank up to the receiver, where they absorb the concentrated solar thermal energy, reaching temperatures of up to 565 degrees.
When corporations are people, corporations take a dump in your water supply. When corporations take a dump in your water supply, you get sick. When you get sick, you get high on prescription meds. When you get high on prescription meds, you email the wrong video to your entire office. When you email the wrong video to your entire office, you become known at the office as the Naked Hulk. Don't become known as the Naked Hulk. Get rid of corporate rule. Amend the Constitution. Sign the petition at movetoamend.org.
Is that it? Are we done?